Way too many people talking about this than it deserves, but now that there's such a community uproar about it, I'm sorry, I'm jumping on the bandwagon and also throwing in my hat because I just think way too many people are turning a non-issue into an issue, and people are basically imagining problems that I don't think are really there. Now, all that being said, in the past I've been very critical towards Tesla. I've been called an Elon hater, a Tesla hater on this very channel, which I don't think you're being fair if you don't get comments pushing you either way, but Tesla very clearly was innovating a lot and trying to develop a ton of new technologies all at once with the Cybertruck. And there's a lot of things that you just will not find until the product is out there in the wild and being used in a variety of circumstances. There's only so many things you can test internally, and I think Tesla has learned that. You know, they've had multiple recalls with the Cybertruck between the windshield wiper and the accelerator pedal. There's certainly been problems and things they overlooked and had to improve on and are now making better, of course, via over-the-air updates and also manufacturing improvements. So I'm not trying to say that the Cybertruck by any means was perfect and was completely thought out and doesn't have any problems, but this one particular issue everybody wants to talk about, in my opinion, this is not an oversight. I think this is just a lot of people getting carried away into Whistlin Diesel's latest video, which, by the way, is hilarious. If you haven't watched it yet, these guys are insane. They're crazy funny. There's several points in the video where he's basically screaming like a goat. Also very funny if you're an EV enthusiast and you see the kinds of easy mistakes he makes, like because the Cybertruck he used in his video had not been assigned an account of any kind, he was confused why the truck isn't charging. Like he thought it was supposed to just magically know his credit card number, even though at no point did the supercharger ask for his credit card. He just assumed he could take it to any charger and plug it in and it would start to... Anyway, basic stuff like that was like, yeah, you actually have to assign the title to an owner of some kind to initiate charging, but all that kind of thing. But my whole point in this video is that Whistlin Diesel is an entertainer. These are not rigid, strict durability tests. There's not some kind of adequate scientific scoring system. It's like the whole video starts off with him driving an F-150 and a Cybertruck, just full speed in reverse off the back of a flatbed. Clearly avoidable damage that no one should actually ever be going through in their vehicle. And of course, you're probably putting both of these vehicles through experiences in tests that they were never meant to experience, because this, I think both manufacturers would agree, is a misuse of the product. You're not supposed to just drive them off the flatbed truck. But it's funny and it's entertaining, so that's why they did it. I'm not trying to fault him for making an entertaining video, but I am kind of pushing back a little bit at this one portion of the video where they basically are doing this kind of off-road, on-road, because the F-150 got stuck on their crazy cylindrical tests of it driving over these giant cement blocks. And at one point, they're trying to get the F-150 out of its stuck position because it can't move anymore with the Cybertruck, and basically the whole tow hitch and part of the rear subframe of the Cybertruck just shears off. And a bunch of people clung to that portion of the video saying, oh my god, Tesla needs to fundamentally redesign the Cybertruck because this is dangerous for towing experiences. Like, if you're just driving down the freeway with a big trailer behind you, the whole back of the truck is just gonna rip off, and if you hit a pothole, then the whole trailer's just gonna pop off, even though this is literally never once happened, and we've seen the Cybertruck brought to multiple, like, tractor pull events where not only are they easily exceeding the tow rating, but they're increasing the amount of weight that is put on the hitch by moving the total mass of the trailer forward as the truck gets further and further through the competition. Like, basically, they've stretched the back of this Cybertruck to be pulling, like, 33,000 pounds, like, insane amounts of weight that it's not supposed to tow. And again, a lot of your tow rating actually comes down more to how fast you can stop the amount of weight behind you, not so much just like, can the vehicle move? Can it actually be pulling mass behind it that exceeds a certain weight? Which is why, again, I think if there was some kind of structural failure point that Tesla overlooked or didn't account for, we'd be seeing these tow hitches and trailers shearing off and ripping off from all kinds of different content creators and all kinds of people that are just trying to tow it in your day-to-day lives. But the misconception I think a lot of people are having from the Whistlin Diesel video is that just because a vehicle keeps moving, that means that nothing about its characteristics have changed. This is actually both a defense and an offense towards the Cybertruck, so I'm going to praise it and criticize it in today's video simultaneously. First of all, this test with the cylinders where they basically drive as fast as they can over it and they don't have a ramp on the other end, the F-150 failed immediately. Like, it couldn't get over it because, for one, the F-150 has a drive shaft and not as great ground clearance, so it just straight up can't make it, which means it's not an apples to apples comparison because the F-150 doesn't doesn't go through the exact same durability test that the Cybertruck does, but because the Cybertruck has the better ground clearance and there's no drive shaft to worry about, it's able to actually start making progress over these big cement cylinders. But at the very end, this is the key part where I think the Cybertruck is structurally damaged, and this is not a use case I think any Cybertruck owner has ever found themselves in. This is not your just typical off-roading experience, but basically near the very end, he's like, okay, we gotta gun it because there's no ramp at the end, and obviously he was trying to avoid damaging the rear of the vehicle too poorly, but I think he did, let's be honest. He's got this giant rectangular prism block at the very end, and it's a huge drop-off, and you can actually see at the video, they kind of cut at the opportune moment, which I think would have revealed a lot more if they didn't cut, but there's basically a shot where at a pretty high rate of speed, they accelerate, and the whole rear section of the truck, you know, everything behind the rear wheels, just has the entire weight of the truck smashed down on this giant cement block. And in my opinion, and thousands of others out there who have watched the video, that is clearly the part where they crack the rear subframe of the Cybertruck. And you can see in the video yourself, it's not the trailer like receiver that just wasn't welded or bolted to the frame properly. It's like the whole rear frame has just been detached. They didn't notice it right away because that amount of impact and force doesn't just pop the whole truck in half, but it did severely damage it. And then of course, once you start pulling an F-150 that is stuck at a kind of an awkward angle simultaneously, yeah, that sheared off the remainder of the subframe that was attached to the tow hitch. So again, not a very common use case, and some people could make the argument that, well, this is still dangerous because what if you go off-roading in the Cybertruck and you cause significant damage to the subframe and then you go around and try to do some kind of crazy trailer pulling situation? Well, then the trailer could shear off, in which case I'd say even then, this is not a typical off-roading experience. We don't know if the suspension was behaving properly, especially when you're going on something as crazy as those giant cylindrical cement blocks. We know there could have been a lot of damage directly when they just backed it up off of the flatbed without any kind of gradularity or grace. There could have been all kinds of damage, so the suspension may have not been operating properly. They were driving it minutes before this, like, as fast as they could over a giant pile of logs, both frontward and backward. A lot of people, when they watch these Cybertruck videos, just assume that if the truck keeps moving, that means that it must be fine. There was no earlier damage, and that damage is not going to play into the performance of the vehicle at all. Whereas, similarly, I'm going to use that same point as an offense against the Cybertruck. Other crazy durability channels that are more just entertainment pieces than anything will take Teslas or, of course, the Cybertruck and put them in wade mode and just drive as fast as they possibly can through a ton of water and get really, really deep. And they just assume that because the truck didn't shut off and because the truck was able to drive all the way through the water, there must be no damage, right? That means you can drive your Cybertruck like a boat through a river. Whereas, as we find out over time, no, this is not the case. Even if the truck is still technically moving, there's electronics, there's components that can get wet, or parts of the truck that get submerged and then hold on to that water. And then as you keep driving it, as you're moving it around, you'll start to hear that water sloshing around inside the truck. That causes more erosion, and that can cause things to stop working, as TechRax discovered in his Cybertruck durability testing as well. So again, just because the truck keeps moving doesn't mean it hasn't been substantially damaged and could perform substantially worse in various circumstances ahead. So I think anybody who does any kind of real-world off-roading knows that if you're in the max ground clearance or you're in off-road mode and you're trying to find the best path of least resistance, like if you don't have a proper spotter or if you're flooring the truck through really, really difficult approach and departure angles, you will break all kinds of things. I highly recommend watching Out of Specs video where they recently took the off-roading up north in Colorado and had a marvelous time doing it because they had proper spotting and because Kyle Connor actually knew what he was doing. He wasn't trying to break the Cybertruck for the sake of making an entertainment video. He was trying to document what the ownership experience is like because he's a real Cybertruck owner, not one that's just buying it so they can strap C4 to it. But yeah, he has done lots of off-roading in the past and knows that you're supposed to kind of turn the truck and try to get around big rocks and big boulders as strategically as you can. You don't just slam the accelerator pedal and see what happens. And again, off-roading is not the same as driving off giant cylindrical blocks or rectangular blocks, which can apply equal force across the entire subframe and also result in the truck dropping its entire weight on the back, which is not a mounting point. That's not where the Cybertruck's supposed to be lifted, which again, at the end of the day, I don't fault them for making the video because obviously it's a form of entertainment. They're trying to be funny and I laughed while I was watching it because they're being silly. They're screaming like children and just saying, hey, let's see what happens if we do something stupid with it. But I'm not surprised at all that Tesla didn't account for the stupid YouTuber durability tests. And I don't think that this is a design flaw. I don't think that this is Tesla just being negligent, even though Tesla is negligent on other things. I fault them for the accelerator pedal mistake. That was clearly a design flaw. I fault them for the windshield wiper problems. They obviously had to recall all of the Cybertruck, so that's clearly a mistake. Not saying Tesla is perfect, but I will defend them on the whole trailer hitch thing. You know, if we actually had real world use cases where people were towing with their Cybertruck and they were following the advertised tow rating and they were still resulting in the trailer hitches falling off or the frame detaching, if that was happening, I would agree. Okay, Tesla has a serious design flaw. They didn't account for this and this is a problem, but when you're using the Cybertruck well outside of its intended use case and you're doing all kinds of crazy stupid things to it and you don't know how you're treating the vehicle, just remember, being an off-road vehicle doesn't mean indestructible vehicle. Any Rivian owner will tell you, like, there's absolutely a way, if you're doing it improperly or recklessly, or if you don't have proper spotting, that you can damage any vehicle, even if it's meant for off-road use cases, because there's all kinds of weird boulders and rocks and situations that you can put yourselves in. In other words, yes, you can easily break your Cybertruck if you're reckless with it, and I don't think Tesla is in the wrong, basically, for not accounting for these kinds of use cases. Because what else are they supposed to do? If it didn't break in this situation, okay, maybe Tesla beefs up the rear subframe and makes it stronger. Now the weight is heavier, the range is worse, the price goes up, and someone is still gonna make a crazy video with it where they drive it off a cliff and it substantially damages itself, and then they keep driving with it and something else is gonna break, and then they're gonna blame that. You know, there's all kinds of entertainment narratives out there that will cling on to anything to get a news story made about them, but that doesn't mean it's a genuine problem. Most of the time, it's just them trying to get clicks. So until there's a real world situation where a trailer shears off the back of the Cybertruck, I don't think this is a legitimate problem. But what do you guys think? Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.